Commander Zarvox walked slowly into the grand chamber of the High Council of United Species. His forearms hung stiffly at his sides. The skin on his face had turned a pale blue color, showing his nervousness. After 50 years of silence, he had finally agreed to talk about the humans. A circular room fell quiet as he moved toward the speaking platform. 500 representatives from across the galaxy watched him. Many had never seen real combat. None had faced humans in battle. "Begin when ready, Commander," said High Counselor Vrenthal. The ancient alien's voice echoed in the silent chamber. Zarvox looked around the room. His eyes stopped when he noticed a human female sitting in the shadows. Susan Miller kept her face calm, though her heart beat faster. She had been sent by Earth's government to listen and report back what the old alien commander would say about humanity. "I commanded the Coalition's 3rd Battle Fleet for 30 years, Zarvox began. His voice was rough with age. "We brought 126 species into the Galactic Coalition. Some joined peacefully. Others needed to be shown our power first." He tapped a control on the platform. A hologram appeared, showing his younger self receiving medals and honors. "I never lost a battle until we met humans," he said. A murmur spread through the crowd. Susan shifted in her seat. Her grandfather had fought in those early battles. He had never spoken much about it, but she remembered his nightmares. "We detected their radio signals first," Zarvox continued. "Primitive communications from a species that had barely reached their own moon. We expected an easy victory. We were wrong." The hologram changed to show Earth, a small blue planet. Their technology was simple compared to ours. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were basic. But Zarvox paused. His skin flashed red before returning to blue. "But they fought like nothing we had ever seen." High Counselor Vrenthal leaned forward. "In what way, Commander?" "They did not follow any known battle patterns. When surrounded, they did not surrender. When outgunned, they attacked. When their ships were damaged, they turned them into weapons." Zarvox's voice grew quieter. "They kept fighting even when victory was impossible." Susan felt pride mixed with sadness. Humanity's survival had come at a terrible cost. "We thought they were mindless savages at first," Zarvox said. "But they were not. They were adaptable in ways we could not understand. They used our strengths against us. They found weaknesses in our technology we did not know existed." A member of the council stood up. "You speak of humans as if they were superior warriors, Commander. Yet they were technologically inferior." Zarvox turned all 4 of his eyes toward the speaker. "They were deceptively primitive, but unnaturally tenacious. In all my years of service, only humans managed to destroy one of our dreadnoughts with a vessel 1/10 its size." The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Susan watched carefully, memorizing every reaction. "That is impossible," someone shouted. "I watched it happen," Zarvox replied. His skin darkened to a deep purple. "I lost 8,000 crew members that day. The human ship had only 23 people on board." Silence fell over the room again. "I am not here to praise humans," Zarvox said. "I am here to help you understand them. The peace we have now is fragile. If we face them in war again, we must know what we are fighting." Susan noticed how the alien commander's hands trembled slightly. Whatever he had seen during the war still haunted him. "I will tell you about specific battles," Zarvox continued. "I will explain how humans think when they fight. And perhaps then you will understand why I have advocated for peace with them for the past 20 years. As the old commander prepared to share his first battle story, Susan Miller prepared herself to hear about her people through the eyes of their former enemy. What she would learn might change how she viewed her own species forever. Zarvox activated another hologram. This one showed a massive coalition warship facing a much smaller human vessel. The size difference was striking. "Our first real battle with humans happened in their asteroid belt," Zarvox said. "We sent one dreadnought to demonstrate our power. We wanted Earth to understand resistance was pointless." A hologram zoomed in on the human ship. It looked crude compared to the sleek alien vessel. The human ship was called Horizon. Its captain was John Prescott. Zarvox's skin rippled with dark blue patches. I studied him later. He had been a naval officer before joining their space program. He understood warfare. Susan Miller knew this story. Captain Prescott was a legend now. Children on Earth learned his name in school. We transmitted our demands. We expected them to turn back to Earth with our message of submission. Zarvox paused. Instead, they attacked. The council members shifted in their seats. One laughed. A single small vessel against a dreadnought. That was suicide. We thought so too, Zarvox agreed. Our weapons were charged. Our shields were at full power. We were not concerned. In the hologram, the human ship accelerated toward the Coalition dreadnought. Our tactical computers predicted they would fire their primitive missiles, which our shields would easily block. Then we would destroy them. Zarvox's forehands gripped the edge of the speaking platform. But Captain Prescott did something no species in our database had ever done. A hologram showed the horizon suddenly changing course. It flew directly into a nearby asteroid, breaking off a large chunk of rock. He used his ship's rear thrusters to push the asteroid toward us at high speed. Zarvox explained. Our shields were designed to stop energy weapons and solid projectiles of standard sizes. Not an asteroid half the size of our own ship. A hologram displayed the massive rock smashing into the dreadnought. Sections of the Coalition ship broke apart. While we were recovering from the impact, Prescott did something else unexpected. Zarvox's voice grew quieter. He aimed his ship directly at our main weapon housing and accelerated to maximum speed. The council watched as the tiny human ship rammed precisely into a section of the damaged dreadnought. The horizon was destroyed on impact, Zarvox said, but the collision disabled our main weapon system. And then, the hologram showed small objects leaving the destroyed human ship. Escape pods, Susan whispered to herself. They had loaded their escape pods with explosives, Zarvox continued. The pods were small enough to slip through the damage in our shields. They targeted our engine sections and detonated. The council watched in silence as the mighty Coalition dreadnought lost power and began to drift. Captain Prescott and 16 of his crew survived, Zarvox said. They disabled a ship carrying 8,000 Coalition soldiers with a crew of just 23 humans. High Counselor Vrendhal's face showed shock. How did they know where to strike your vessel? Our ship designs were unknown to them. They didn't know, Zarvox replied. Prescott later said they made educated guesses based on the external structure. They improvised their entire attack plan during the battle. The word improvised caused confused murmurs among the council. You mean they had no battle plan? Someone asked. Their plan was to attack. How they would attack was decided as events unfolded. Zarvox's skin turned a deep purple. This is the first thing you must understand about humans. They do not fight according to programmed patterns or standard tactics. They adapt instantly to changing situations. Susan noticed many council members looked disturbed by this idea. After this battle, we realized humans would not surrender easily, Zarvox said. So we launched a ground invasion of Earth. That was our second mistake. His 4 eyes looked directly at the council members. What happened next was worse than anything we had imagined possible. Zarvox changed the hologram to show a dry, dusty landscape. Mountains rose in the distance. The ground was mostly sand and rocks. This is an area humans call Nevada, he said. We chose it for our first major ground assault because it was sparsely populated, but close to important human military installations. Susan Miller tensed in her seat. The Nevada campaign was infamous on Earth. It was where humans first proved they could defeat the aliens on the ground. We landed 5,000 troops with our most advanced weapons and armor, Zarvox continued. Our soldiers could survive in almost any environment. Their armor could stop any human weapon we knew about. Our sensors could detect movement from kilometers away. The hologram showed Coalition troops marching across the desert in perfect formation. Their armor gleamed in the sunlight. We expected the humans to hide in their bunkers, to surrender when they saw our power. Zarvox's skin darkened. Instead, we met Lieutenant Olivia Garcia and her Special Forces team. A council member raised a hand. How many soldiers did this Lieutenant Garcia command? 42, Zarvox replied. Disbelieving murmurs filled the chamber. 42 humans against 5,000 of our elite troops, someone asked. Yes, Zarvox said simply. And they won. He adjusted the hologram to show a massive dust storm forming over the desert. First, they changed the weather, Zarvox explained. Human scientists had been experimenting with cloud seeding and weather modification. Garcia used these techniques to create a dust storm that covered hundreds of square kilometers. The hologram showed the coalition forces lost in swirling dust. Our sensors could not penetrate the storm, Zarvox said. The fine particles interfered with our equipment. We were effectively blind. Susan watched the alien commander's hands tremble slightly as he continued. Next, they used the terrain against us. They buried simple explosive devices in the sand, thousands of them. The hologram showed coalition soldiers stepping on hidden mines. These were not advanced weapons. Many were made from local fertilizer and fuel, but they were effective. The council watched in silence as the hologram displayed coalition troops falling into disarray. When our forces tried to regroup, Garcia's team struck using the storm as cover, Zarvox said. They wore simple goggles and masks that let them see in the dust. They attacked, then disappeared back into the storm. One of the younger council members stood up. But surely our superior weapons were useless when we could not see the target. Zarvox interrupted. And the humans had studied our armor. They aimed for the joints, the breathing apparatus, the sensor arrays. The hologram showed human soldiers in basic desert gear moving quickly through the dust, striking with precision then vanishing. By the third day, our troops were scattered across 50 kilometers, Zarvox said. Communication was broken. Command structure had collapsed. He paused, his skin turning almost black with a painful memory. Then we discovered something that truly disturbed us, he continued quietly. Some human soldiers deliberately drew fire from our troops. They sacrificed themselves so others could locate our positions and attack. The council chamber fell completely silent. Self-sacrifice is common in many species, Zarvox explained. But the calm, calculated way these humans chose certain death to ensure mission success. He shook his head. Our psychologists could not understand it. Susan knew why. Her grandfather had been in Nevada. For the greater good, he used to say. We lost 3,000 troops in Nevada, Zarvox said finally. We retreated to orbit. It was our first major defeat on the ground. He looked directly at the council. This battle taught us that human adaptability wasn't limited to space. They could turn any environment, any situation to their advantage. Zarvox's 4 eyes scanned the room. But what truly frightened us came next. We began to study humans more carefully. What we learned about their psychology changed everything we thought we knew about warfare. Zarvox dimmed the hologram and turned to face the council directly. His skin had settled into a steady, deep blue color. After our defeats in space and on the ground, we began to study humans more carefully, he said. We needed to understand how they fought. What we discovered was deeply troubling. He pressed a button, and a new image appeared. Brain scans of both human and coalition soldiers in combat situations. These are comparative mental studies, Zarvox explained. On the left is the typical brain activity of a coalition soldier during battle. On the right is a human. The council members leaned forward. The differences were striking. The coalition brain showed ordered, systematic patterns. The human brain was lit up in chaotic, unpredictable ways. Our soldiers are trained to follow protocols, Zarvox continued. When faced with a threat, they access their training and respond accordingly. It is efficient and predictable. Susan Miller watched carefully. She had never seen these comparisons before. Humans are different, Zarvox said. When faced with danger, their brains become more active, not less. Their stress hormones actually enhanced their creativity and problem-solving abilities. He changed the display to show footage of training exercises. Coalition soldiers moved in perfect formation, executing textbook maneuvers. Then came footage of human soldiers navigating a similar obstacle course, each taking different approaches. No two humans solved the same problem in exactly the same way, Zarvox said. This makes their behavior impossible to predict with algorithms. A senior council member raised a hand. But surely under extreme stress, all beings become less effective. That is true for every species we had encountered, except humans, Zarvox replied. Our scientists were baffled. Human performance often improves under conditions that would cause other species to break down. He showed another brain scan. We discovered that humans evolved on a planet with countless predators and environmental threats. Their brains developed to function, even thrive, during crisis. Susan felt a strange mix of pride and unease. She had never thought of humanity's stress response as unusual. As the war continued, our tactical computers became less effective, Zarvox explained. They relied on patterns, but humans rarely repeated the same tactic twice. When we adapted to one approach, they simply created new ones. He displayed footage of different battles, showing how human tactics constantly evolved. And then there was the psychological aspect, Zarvox said quietly. Most species fight harder when winning. Humans fight hardest when they appear to be losing. The council chamber was completely silent now. We came to realize that humans don't just accept chaos in battle, they create it deliberately, Zarvox continued. They understand that in chaos, the side with the most rigid structure is at a disadvantage. He shut off the display entirely, leaving only his illuminated platform visible in the dim chamber. Our military leaders began to fear humans not just as enemies but as an existential threat, Zarvox admitted. How can you defeat an enemy who turns your every advantage against you? Who fights hardest when victory seems impossible? Susan noticed several council members shifting uncomfortably in their seats. But the most disturbing discovery was yet to come, Zarvox said. In our studies of human history, we found they had been fighting each other for thousands of years. Every tactic they used against us, they had perfected on themselves. He looked directly at Susan for the first time. Your species learned warfare in the harshest possible school, fighting against your own kind. Susan held his gaze steadily, neither confirming nor denying. This understanding changed our approach, Zarvox continued, turning back to the council. We realized conventional military strategy would not work. We needed to engage them where they had the least advantage, in space, away from their home terrain. His skin darkened to almost black. We gathered our largest fleet and set course for the human outpost on Titan. We would overwhelm them with sheer numbers. Zarvox's forehands gripped the edges of the platform. It was our greatest mistake. Zarvox activated the hologram again. It showed Saturn and its largest moon, Titan, with its thick orange atmosphere. Around the moon floated a small human space station and a handful of ships. Titan was the humans' furthest outpost, Zarvox said. They were mining methane from the moon's surface. We thought it would be an easy target. He expanded the view to show the coalition fleet approaching. There were hundreds of warships of various sizes. We sent 90% of our remaining forces, Zarvox continued. 10 times the number of ships the humans had. Victory seemed certain. Susan Miller had heard stories about the Battle of Titan since childhood. It was taught in every military academy on Earth, but she had never heard it from the enemy's perspective. The human commander was William Freeman, Zarvox said, a veteran of the Nevada conflict. He had only 7 ships and the station to defend Titan. The hologram zoomed in on a medium-sized human vessel with UNSC Defender written on its hull. As we approached, we detected something strange, Zarvox said. Freeman ordered all human ships to power down their systems. They went dark, showing no signs of life or activity. The council members looked confused. Our sensors showed they were completely vulnerable, Zarvox explained. We thought perhaps they were surrendering, or perhaps their systems had failed. His skin rippled with dark patches of color. We moved closer to investigate. That was exactly what Freeman wanted. A hologram showed the Coalition fleet spreading out around Titan. As soon as we were in position, the human ships suddenly powered up, Zarvox said. But they didn't attack us directly. Instead, they fired specialized weapons into Titan's atmosphere. The hologram displayed bright flashes in the orange clouds surrounding the moon. They ignited the methane gases in precise locations, Zarvox continued, created huge explosions that our ships had to navigate around. While we were distracted, their smaller vessels moved into Saturn's rings. The Council watched as tiny human ships disappeared among the ice and rock particles circling the massive planet. The rings created a radiation field that should have been lethal, Zarvox said. Our ships couldn't follow. Our sensors couldn't penetrate the interference. But somehow, the humans had modified their ships to survive there. He paused, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly at the memory. From within the rings, they launched what looked like chunks of ice toward our fleet, Zarvox said. But these were disguised weapons. When they got close enough, they detonated with incredible force. The hologram showed explosions throughout the Coalition fleet. Ships began breaking apart. Our formation was scattered. Our communications were disrupted by the radiation, Zarvox explained. And then Freeman executed his masterstroke. The display showed several human ships that appeared to be damaged drifting toward the largest Coalition vessels. These ships were not damaged. They were filled with explosives, Zarvox said quietly. The crews had abandoned them after setting their courses. They were basically giant missiles. Susan watched as the hologram displayed the unmanned human ships ramming into Coalition battleships and exploding. My own flagship was targeted, Zarvox continued. A human vessel half our size on a direct collision course. We tried to destroy it, but our weapons couldn't stop its momentum. The hologram showed the human ship smashing into the side of Zarvox's massive command vessel. The explosion disabled our main engines and weapons, he said. We were dead in space. Zarvox turned to face the Council directly. In less than 2 hours, Commander Freeman had destroyed 30% of our fleet and disabled another 40%. With 7 ships against hundreds, the Council chamber was completely silent. We retreated, Zarvox said simply. For the first time in Coalition history, we abandoned a major offensive without achieving any objectives. He shut off the hologram. After Titan, our military leaders were desperate. They decided if we couldn't defeat humans, perhaps we could become more like them. Zarvox's skin turned a deep shade of purple as he prepared to continue his testimony. The Council chamber remained silent, many members visibly disturbed by what they had heard so far. After our defeat at Titan, our military leadership made a decision, Zarvox said. If we could not defeat humans through conventional means, we would try to understand how they think. We would create soldiers who could fight like humans. Susan Miller leaned forward in her seat. This was information Earth had never confirmed. There had been rumors, but nothing concrete. We captured a human scientist during a raid on one of their research stations, Zarvox continued. Her name was Dr. Kelly Richardson. She was an expert in military psychology. The hologram displayed an image of a human female with short gray hair and stern features. Dr. Richardson appeared to cooperate with us, Zarvox said. She told us she had been against the war from the beginning, that she would help us understand human thinking if we promised to seek peace terms. His 4 hands made a gesture of regret. We believed her. She helped us create a special combat unit. She trained them in what she called human tactical thinking. She seemed genuinely committed to ending the conflict. Zarvox paused, his skin darkening further. The training was intense. Our soldiers were taught to question orders, to improvise, to make decisions without consulting their commanders, he explained. This went against everything in Coalition military doctrine, but our leaders were desperate for a victory. The hologram showed alien soldiers in training, running through obstacle courses and combat simulations. After 6 months, the special unit was ready for their first mission, Zarvok said. They were sent to attack a small human outpost on Mars. Dr. Richardson helped plan the operation. Susan noticed the alien commander's hands were trembling again. The mission was a complete disaster, Zarvok stated flatly. The unit fell into chaos. Without their usual rigid command structure, they could not coordinate effectively. They made mistakes. They hesitated when they should have acted. They acted when they should have waited. A hologram showed the failed attack. Coalition soldiers moving erratically, firing at wrong targets, breaking formation. Of 100 soldiers in the unit, only 12 returned, Zarvok said. And then we discovered the truth. He looked directly at Susan again. Dr. Richardson had never defected, he said quietly. She had been working against us the entire time. She deliberately trained our soldiers incorrectly. She gave them flawed understanding of human tactics. A council member stood up. How could your intelligence officers not detect this deception? Because she told us many truths mixed with subtle lies, Zarvok replied. She correctly explained how humans think, but she taught our soldiers to apply these principles in ways that would fail. Susan kept her face carefully neutral, but inside she felt a surge of pride. Dr. Richardson was now considered one of Earth's greatest heroes. When we discovered her sabotage, Dr. Richardson had already escaped, Zarvok continued. She returned to Earth with complete knowledge of our military capabilities and psychology. He shut off the hologram. This failure taught us something important, Zarvok said. We could not become like humans. Their way of thinking, their approach to warfare, was not something we could adopt. It was the product of their entire evolutionary history. The council chamber was completely silent. Despite this setback, our leaders refused to consider peace, Zarvok said. They ordered one final, all-out assault on the human settlement on Europa, Jupiter's moon. I was given command of the operation. His skin had now turned almost black. I knew it was doomed to fail, he admitted. But I followed orders. What happened there changed me forever. Zarvok activated the hologram once more. It showed Jupiter's moon Europa, a ball of ice with a smooth, cracked surface. A small human base was visible near the equator. Europa was vital to the humans, Zarvok explained. Its ice crust hid an ocean beneath. They were mining rare minerals from the seafloor and using the water for fuel production. The hologram expanded to show a massive coalition fleet approaching the moon. I commanded our last major offensive there, Zarvok said. We brought every weapon in our arsenal. 300 ships, 20,000 ground troops, planet cracker bombs that could break through the ice crust. Susan Miller watched intently. The Battle of Europa was famous, but much of what happened remained classified even on Earth. The human defense was led by Admiral Nancy Kruse, Zarvok continued. She had only 22 ships and about 5,000 troops. We outnumbered them greatly. The hologram zoomed in on the human base. It showed drilling platforms extending down through the ice into the dark water below. We began with a standard orbital bombardment, Zarvok said. But Kruse had anticipated this. The humans had built their critical infrastructure deep beneath the ice, where our weapons couldn't reach. The display showed coalition weapons hitting the surface, creating craters that quickly refroze. When bombardment failed, I ordered ground troops to land, Zarvok continued. We would capture their surface facilities and use their own drills to reach the underwater sections. The council watched as coalition landing craft descended to Europa's surface. Troops in specialized environmental suits spread out across the ice. What happened next? Zarvok paused, his skin flickering between colors. What happened next was a masterclass in asymmetric warfare. The hologram showed the ice beneath the coalition troops suddenly cracking. Entire sections collapsed, taking hundreds of soldiers with them. Admiral Kruse had weakened the ice in strategic locations, Zarvok explained. Their scientists had calculated exactly where to plant thermal charges beneath the surface. They could cause controlled collapses whenever they wanted. The display shifted to show coalition troops who had fallen through the ice into the dark water below. Our suits were designed for vacuum and extreme cold, but not for underwater operation, Zarvox said. Many soldiers drowned. Those who survived found themselves facing human divers in specialized water combat suits. Susan remembered learning about the Europa Marine Corps, soldiers specifically trained for underwater warfare. The humans had modified their suits to work efficiently in water, Zarvox continued. They moved like sea creatures. They attacked from below, from angles we couldn't defend against. The hologram showed human divers moving through the water, attaching explosive devices to the undersides of coalition vehicles on the surface. When we tried to pull back our ground forces, crews launched her ships, Zarvox said. They had been hiding on the far side of Europa. They attacked our fleet while we were distracted by the ground situation. The display showed human vessels emerging from behind the moon, firing missiles at the coalition ships. But their most effective tactic was using Europa itself as a weapon, Zarvox said. They had drilled hundreds of holes through the ice. When they pumped water up and out these holes, it immediately froze in the vacuum of space, creating ice projectiles. The hologram showed massive spears of ice shooting up from Europa's surface, smashing into coalition ships overhead. By the third day, we had lost 60% of our ground forces and 40% of our fleet, Zarvox said quietly. For the first time in my career, I ordered a full retreat without authorization from High Command. He turned off the hologram, his 4 eyes looking down at the floor. When I returned to coalition space, I expected to be executed for my failure, he said. Instead, our leaders finally accepted what I had been telling them. The war against humans could not be won. Zarvox stood silently at the platform for several moments. His skin had returned to a calm blue color. His 4 eyes scanned the council chamber, taking in the shocked expressions of the representatives. After Europa, peace negotiations began, he said finally. The treaty was signed 2 years later. That was 20 years ago. The High Counselor Vrenfall leaned forward. Commander, you have shared many disturbing accounts of human warfare. What is the purpose of your testimony today? To prevent another war, Zarvox replied simply. I believe the Coalition has misunderstood the true lesson of our conflict with humans. Susan Miller tensed in her seat. This was the real reason she had been sent to observe. Many in our military still view humans as dangerous savages, Zarvox continued. They believe humans excel at warfare because they love violence. That is not true. He activated a final hologram. This one showed scenes of human daily life. Families, workers, artists, teachers. Humans excel at warfare because their entire evolutionary history is one of adaptation and survival against overwhelming odds, Zarvox explained. Their planet tried to kill them countless times. They faced extinction-level events and survived. They turned hostile environments into homes. The hologram showed humans living in deserts, Arctic regions, mountains, and deep forests. The same creativity they use in war, they also use to build, to heal, to create art, Zarvox said. Their adaptability is not limited to destruction. He shut off the hologram and faced the council directly. I have spent the last 20 years studying humans, he said, not as enemies, but as potential allies. What I discovered is that they fight fiercely not because they love war, but because they love what they are protecting. Susan found herself nodding slightly. High Counselor, I believe there is a human observer present, Zarvox said suddenly. Perhaps they should speak. All eyes in the chamber turned to Susan. After a moment's hesitation, she stood and walked to the center of the room. My name is Susan Miller, she said. I was sent by Earth's government to hear Commander Zarvox's testimony. A High Counselor gestured for her to continue. What the commander has said about our tactics is largely accurate, Susan admitted. We fought in ways that seemed chaotic to you because we had to. We were facing a technologically superior enemy. She looked directly at Zarvox. But he is also right about why we fought. not for glory or conquest, but for survival, for our homes and families. Murmurs spread through the council chamber. There is something else you should know, Susan continued. Commander Zarvox has not been working alone these past 20 years. He has been collaborating with humans, including Paul Winters, our defense secretary. This revelation caused an uproar in the chamber. The High Counselor had to call for order. It's true, Zarvox confirmed when quiet returned. Winters and I believe our species have much to learn from each other. Humans can teach us adaptability and innovation. We can offer them stability and perspective. Susan nodded. Our governments have authorized a joint military training program, not to prepare for war, but to combine our strengths for mutual defense and peacekeeping. The High Counselor looked shocked. Why was the Council not informed of this? Because old fears run deep, Zarvox replied. On both sides. My testimony today was meant to address those fears, to show that understanding your former enemy is the path to lasting peace. He extended one of his 4 hands toward Susan, who took it without hesitation. Humans do not want another war, Susan said. Neither does the coalition. But peace requires more than just the absence of conflict. It requires cooperation, partnership. Zarvox nodded. 20 years ago, I feared humans. Today, I count them among my closest allies. That is the true lesson of the war. Not that humans are dangerous enemies, but that they can be powerful friends.